Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I have a hypothetical 2028 presidential election prediction. This video is going to be a matchup of two governors. We have the Democratic governor of the state of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, going up against the Republican governor of the state of Florida, Ron Desantis. Both Shapiro and Desantis are two potential candidates who could run for the 2028 presidential election. Though both Shapiro currently polls around 4.7% in the race to the White House average. This would put him in about 7th place in the Democratic side for 2028. Whereas in the Republican side of things, unless Donald Trump Jr. runs against J.D. Vance in 2028, which I don't expect him to, Ron DeSantis is currently polling usually around 2nd place in the Republican primary fields. So for this matchup, we have Shapiro versus Vance. I'm going to start out with the states that I fully expect to be safe for the Democrats and the Republicans. This means states I expect will vote by more than 15% for the Democrats and Republicans. These are the states of Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Illinois, which I expect will go a little bit more Democratic than it did in 2024 and 2028 without Trump at the top of the ticket. DC, Maryland, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Delaware, Connecticut, Vermont, Maine's 1st Congressional District, and the state of New York, all of which I expect to be safe Democratic states. We also have some states that are very close to being safe Democrat, but I think are going to be likely Democrat for now. We also have some states that I think Ron DeSantis will win by more than 15 points. These are the states of Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Nebraska at large, plus the 1st and 3rd district, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and South Carolina. This puts DeSantis and the Republicans at 122, Shapiro at 167. We now have some states that I think are going to be likely, just shy of 15 points, but over 10% of the vote. I think the state of Alaska will be like that. I think Texas will be likely Republican, and Florida, I think, will be likely Republican. After we saw in 2024, we saw all of these states go for President Trump in likely margins, 13 points in Alaska, 13.5 in Texas, and 13 points in Florida. I expect all three will be likely Republican states in 2028. As for Josh Shapiro, I do have the state of Colorado being likely Democratic for him, as we just saw the state of Colorado go for Kamala Harris by about 11 points in 2024. That's probably going to be it for the upwards of 10% likely Democratic states. We now have some states that I think are going to be likely for the Democrats and Republicans that just are going to be a little bit shy of 10%, starting with the state of Maine. Maine voted for Kamala Harris by about 7 points in 2024. 2020 voted for Joe Biden by about 9 points. I think we could see Shapiro win it by probably around 9 to 9.5. So again, just under 10%, but I would have that being likely Democratic. The state of New Jersey, I would also put in this category. I think being the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro would be able to get more votes in the state of New Jersey than Kamala Harris was able to get. She won the state of New Jersey in 2024 over Donald Trump by only about 6 points. After 2020, when Joe Biden won it by 16, I think Shapiro wins it by around that 10% threshold or so in 2028. The state of Virginia went 5.8% for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump in 2024. I think Shapiro would do a better job than Harris at winning over a lot of more moderate voters in the state of Virginia, as well as I think Ron DeSantis would probably do a little bit worse than Donald Trump in the state. I think Virginia would go likely Democrat. The state of Iowa, I expect, would be a likely Republican win, as would the state of Ohio. Both of these states have trended Republican a lot in recent years. Trump winning Iowa by 13 points, Ohio by 11 points in 2024, both of which he won by 8 points in 2020. I think DeSantis would win these states probably around 8.5 points or so in 2028 in this matchup with Josh Shapiro. Now we also have the state of New Mexico and its 5 electoral votes. We just saw this state go for Kamala Harris by about 6 points over Donald Trump in 2024. I think we could see probably something similar to this, maybe 7 to 7.5% for Shapiro over DeSantis in the state of New Mexico. A state that would usually be put in the battleground category, I'm actually going to put Minnesota into likely Democratic. We did see Kamala Harris win the state over Donald Trump by 4.2%, but I think of the Republican candidates, Ron DeSantis would not be able to do as well as Donald Trump at getting Republican voters out to vote in the Rust Belt. So I think Republicans would take a little bit of a hit in the Rust Belt in 2028 compared to the numbers that Trump has been doing, which would give an over 5-point victory for Shapiro in the state of Minnesota. Also, while we're here, the state of New Hampshire, it voted for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump by just 2.8%, a lot closer than expected. But in 2020, it voted for Joe Biden by 7.4% over Donald Trump. New Hampshire is right on the line between being a lean Democratic state and likely Democratic state for me in 2028. But right now, for Shapiro versus DeSantis, I think Shapiro wins by about 5.5%, which is just enough to put the state of New Hampshire into the likely Democratic category. The two congressional districts, Maine 2nd District and Nebraska 2nd District, I think Nebraska 2nd District starts out as likely Democrat, where Maine starts out as lean Republican. We saw these districts go lean Democrat for Kamala Harris by 4.7% in 2024. Maine 2nd went for 9 points for Donald Trump in 2024. Back in 2020, Maine 2nd went for 6.5 for Biden over Trump. Maine 2nd went 7.4 for Trump over Biden. I think in this scenario, again, DeSantis would not be able to bring out as many rural voters as Donald Trump was able to do, hurting Republican turnout a little bit. That would put DeSantis at 219, but still winning that district, where Shapiro would grow on Kamala's margins from 2024 and improving the margins in Nebraska's 2nd District. Now with Shapiro at 226, DeSantis at 219, the election comes down to the battleground states I'm putting in the yellowish gold color. 93 electoral votes left to be won by Shapiro or DeSantis. Starting with the state of Nevada and its 6 electoral votes, we did just see Donald Trump win the state over Kamala Harris by 3.1%, flipping the state from blue to red, where in 2020 it was won by Joe Biden by 2.4%. I think the Republicans have made a lot of momentum in the state of Nevada, and I think I wouldn't be surprised to see it be Republican in 2028. However, for Shapiro versus DeSantis, I am going to narrowly give the state to Josh Shapiro over Ron DeSantis. I think Democrats would turn out to vote in larger numbers for Shapiro than for DeSantis, in large part due to the fact after 4 years of Trump being president and Trump being not at the top of the ticket, as not as many Republicans will turn out to vote as much, which I think in a state like Nevada, where Trump was able to flip it from blue to red, it would be a little bit hurt in that scenario. So Nevada I have going for Shapiro by about 2 points. The state of Arizona, however, I do have Arizona staying in the Republican column, going to Ron DeSantis by about a lean Republican margin. We saw Arizona, after it voted for Joe Biden by 0.3% in 2020, make a large shift back to the Republicans by 5.5% in 2024. In this scenario, I think DeSantis would defeat Shapiro in Arizona by a little over 3% in this matchup. As for the state of Georgia, however, Georgia voted very close in 2024 for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by 2.2% after Joe Biden won the state by 0.24% in 2020. We did still see some population growth surrounding Atlanta and the DeKalb County, Fulton County, Georgia, Cobb area in Atlanta. So I think Georgia, after 4 more years of population growth, Georgia will continue to be a very close state that at the end of the day, I am going to give to Josh Shapiro over Ron DeSantis just by a little bit. I think, again, Republican turnout in the rural areas will be a little bit lower, whereas the levels of turnout in the Atlanta area will probably be similar to what Kamala Harris got, which would be just enough for Shapiro to eke out a very narrow victory in the state of Georgia. As for the state of North Carolina and its 16 electoral votes, it voted for Donald Trump by 3.2%. In 2024, in 2020, it voted for Trump by 1.3%. It's a very close state. Democrats try and contest it every election. I think this time around, DeSantis or Shapiro, I think DeSantis would once again win North Carolina. I think he would win it in a lean Republican margin. I think North Carolina could potentially flip in 2028, but I think 2032 would be more likely given the population trends in North Carolina. I think North Carolina being tilt Republican in 2028 makes more sense than being a Democratic flip at this time. This leaves the Rust Belt states to decide who will be the next president of the United States, starting with Josh Shapiro's home state of Pennsylvania. This is where DeSantis being the top of the ticket for the Republicans, I think hurts them a little bit more than if it was Trump or Vance at the top of the ticket. Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes went for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by 1.7% after 2020, where it went for Joe Biden by 1.2%. I remember doing videos back when Tim Walz was announced as the VP nominee for the Democrats back in July. I said I thought Shapiro was the better choice to be the VP for the Democrats because he would have a better chance at carrying the state of Pennsylvania for the Democrats than Tim Walz was able to do. Trump was able to win the state of Pennsylvania in 2024, and the rest is history. For Shapiro versus Ron DeSantis, I think Pennsylvania would still be very close given the fact presidential elections are more competitive than governor elections. They're more nationalized, so things are typically more in unison. But I do think Pennsylvania would go blue for Josh Shapiro, and I think it would under 5 points, but I think it also would under 1 point. I think what we saw with Dr. Mehmet Oz and John Fetterman in 2022 at the Senate level, where we saw the race go for John Fetterman by about 4.9% over Oz, I think is something that could be conceivable in a matchup like this, where we see a lot of blue areas around Bucks County and such like that on the eastern part of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. I think is certainly plausible. I think it'd probably be around 4 points or so, though, in Pennsylvania. That was the Senate side of things. So Pennsylvania is now lean Democrat for this matchup for Shapiro versus DeSantis. For the state of Wisconsin, Wisconsin I would also have being a lean Democratic state after we did see Donald Trump win the state by just 0.86% in 2024 in a very close win, but he did win it. 2020, we saw Joe Biden win it by 0.63%. 2016, Trump won it by 0.76%. But again, in this scenario, Shapiro being the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, again, amid a Rust Belt governor state. Also, DeSantis being at the top of the ticket. I don't think DeSantis, as I mentioned, does as well at getting a lot of the Republican voters out to vote the same way Donald Trump did. Wisconsin, I think, goes lean Democrat. In the state of Michigan, it's 15 electoral votes. I also think Josh Shapiro wins, winning the trifecta of the 3 Rust Belt states. Michigan, it's 15 electoral votes, voted for Donald Trump by 1.4% in 2024 after voting for Joe Biden by 2.8% in 2020. I think a similar win to 2020 would be possible here for Shapiro, where again, I think being the Midwestern governor that he is, would be able to get more appeal to Rust Belt voters than DeSantis being the governor of the state of Florida. So for Josh Shapiro versus Ron DeSantis for 2028, right now I have Shapiro winning with 292 electoral votes to Ron DeSantis' 246, with very close wins in Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia for Shapiro, and very close wins for DeSantis in Arizona and North Carolina. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Who do you think would win between Shapiro and DeSantis in 2028? Make sure to give the video a like. Also, make sure to click subscribe as I post at least 2 new videos every single day, and I try and post 1 new election prediction every single day or every other day, so you're not going to want to miss those. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.